Mo from the Markout Movie Podcast, and this is Binge Worthy.
Oh, I'm Chandler. Could I be wearing any more clothes?
Well, yeah, that's the right number, but this is an apartment. What? Save your life! Save it! Yeah, no problem.
It's over.
Be like, back up! Mind your business, that's all. Mind your business. I want you out. I don't even know why you're still here. Step! Okay, step! You won!
Wow, that is really hard. You really think you can go all day long? Well, you always left me satisfied and smiling, so.
That's what she said. Michael.
What I said was, give me all the bacon and eggs you have. You understand?
All right, so this is Binge Worthy, and on today's episode, we are going to be reviewing ER, one of the greatest shows, hospital dramas in the history of television. This show ran from 1994 to 2009, so had 15 seasons, and as the show is entitled Binge Worthy, I truly did binge this show, and so I'm excited to talk about it a bit. Joker, I am flying solo today. Brandon, he had car trouble, so it's just me, but it's all good. But anyway, so let's get into it. This show it follows the lives, loves, and losses of the doctors and nurses of Chicago's County General Hospital. It was created by Michael Crichton, the same guy that came up with wrote Jurassic Park, the novel, and it stars Anthony Edwards, George Clooney, Juliana Margulies, Shirley Springfield, Eric LaSalle, and of course Noah Wiley, who makes his his debut in there, and then other seasons brought, of course, Laura Ennis, Mara Turney, Gloria Rubin, Alex Kingston, Goran Visnik, and Paul McCrane. Just name a few other people. Plus, later on, John Stamos and even Angela Bassett is on the show. I'm gonna real quick try to play just the opening of the show, if I can get myself together. Yeah, here we are, and here we go. Everybody in this was always rushing, just like in a hurry. I just played a little bit of it. All right, so I just want to play a little bit of it just so you can get a gist of it. Let's see, I got a couple of comments. All right, let me see what old Jokester's saying today. Good, he holds you back. Oh, that's terrible. He's good. I like him. It's my boy. Let your star shine. All right, thank you. All right, so anyway, so ER man, I've been trying to get into like a lot of medical series. You know, my job works with insurance, like health insurance, so I deal with a lot of uh, coding and things like that. And so I wanted to kind of look at medical shows. I don't know why I'm weird, but yeah. So I decided to watch. At one point, I was watching The Good Doctor, which I enjoy that show. The Resident, I also enjoy that show. If you have any other suggestions, I'm down for them. But I wanted to watch the what I would consider the granddaddy of them all, which is ER, and it's probably the most accurate out of all of them. I love the consistency in the show from just like from the people that's there, like not only just the doctors but the nurses, the RNs. They are always there, always in the background, the same people and the same, and they come up and you like just like feel like you're part of that unit with them. And then of course there's the doctors. You have uh, George Clooney and there's Doug. Uh, Let me see. I'm trying to get to my cast. There's Dr. Doug Ross, Anthony Edwards, Mark Green. He was the heart. He's the linchpin of the show. He was the title person in the show. And later on during the show, George Clooney becomes famous. But yeah, but he is pretty much he's the guy. Then Juliana Margulies. I don't know if I pronounced her name right. It's Carol Hathaway. She is also on The Good Wife. She was in The Good Wife. If you know her as Alicia Florrick in that show, that's where I first saw her at. But yeah, in this show, she's excellent. Noah Wiley, he's great as John Carter, Dr. Carter. He becomes a standout on the show. Eric LaSalle, honestly, let's talk about Eric. So Eric, I knew that guy from Coming to America. He played the dude. I forget his name now in the movie, but he's the dude with the Jerry curl that was like the sole heir of Soul Glow, the Jerry curl empire. He's just ridiculous. But he's like he plays like a prick in there, and then here he has that kind of prickish quality about him. He's a surgeon, and so surgeons are narcissistic and things like that. But yeah, he plays it well, and he does an excellent job doing that. Um, I'm trying to monitor if I get any comments online. Oh, things on the job doing that. Let me pause it. Anyway, now let me get out of there. So I just try to see if I can monitor. I'm trying to monitor if I. All right, so I messed that up. Anyway, and what I love about the show is how it really showcases the just what the feel is at a hospital. And it's an older show. It came out in '94, so you get to see it like how things progressed technology wise. Even when the show ended, they were still charting on paper charts. I think now it's all digital. I don't think that anyone really charts on paper charts anymore, as far as I know. But I'm not really in the medical field. If any of my viewers is, please let me know. I'd be happy to eat crow. But yeah, I love that aspect of it. Um, and the people like paramedics and stuff like that, and another thing that happens in the show that is great is there is so many people that special guest appearance on this show that went on to be famous. It's crazy. Like for instance, Taraji P. Henson, I think she popped up on an episode. I believe she did. I might be wrong. I know Octavia Spencer pops up. I know the Padawick. I don't know his name. The dude that played Sam on Supernaturals. He popped up on it. Jarrett. Yeah, but Yeah, he pops up on there. So many people pop up. The dude that played Negan, that guy, he pops up as a guy who's like gets his leg amputated essentially because he's crushed by a train. Um, it's just crazy who all graced the hallways of the county hospital in that show and went on to end up being famous. And it's kind of it's very similar to um, it's very similar to uh, SVU, Law and Order SVU, specifically SVU, and not like the rest of the Law and Order shows, and even the Law and Order Mother show. How a lot of people showed up as victims or bodies or whatever in that show, uh, and went on to become famous in one way or another. Speaking of which, uh, the chick that plays in Law and Order SVU. Oh man, I forget her name. She's the detective lady. You know who I'm talking about. If y'all know, please let me know. Uh, she shows up. She's in a couple of seasons or one season of ER as a love interest of one of the doctors. I'm gonna try to keep it spoiler free at first before I get into it. But I do wanna. I wanted to show you the opening scene to the show. So this is the opening scene. This is what you see right after the credits end, and kind of gives you a feel of the hospital. So here we go. I also realized that last time I shared this, I didn't have audio.
Dr. Green.
What is it?
Patient for you, Dr. Green.
Let the intern take it.
It's for you.
What time is it?
5 o'clock.
All right. Can't the intern take it?
It's Dr. Ross.
Dr. Ross. I'll be right there.
I want you to see this, like the sweeping shots that they have in the show. Like they have a lot of one takes, and the camera just follows the action, and everybody hits their mark. It was a great show.
Come on, Doug. Mark, you are. Did I wake you up?
Yes, you did.
You are a real friend. I want you to know that.
That's all right.
Real friend.
Yeah.
Get out of bed to me. Yeah, room 3 is free. Room 3 is free.
3 is free.
3 is free. Free for 3.
Yeah.
There we go.
Come on, Doug.
All right, I got you. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow.
All right, so yeah, I just want to show you a little bit of it, just kind of give you a feel of it. But yeah, that's how the show is, especially like whenever it's an emergency that happens, like at GSW, it's a gunshot wound. Victim comes in, or there's a couple of fire burn victims that come in. There's a lot of people that have stuff stuck on them. Yeah, I did not stutter. That's what happens in the show a lot of times. But the show just has a lot of different things that happen, and it's just all excellent. And my favorite character is probably John Carter, Noah Wiley. He really took over after Dr. Green. And spoilers now. When Dr. Green character passed away. So yeah, ER review. I'm gonna put spoilers so that people know. Spoilers, just in case y'all plan on watching it. Y'all can't say that Aaron didn't warn you, but yeah. So Dr. Green, he he goes through a lot of things. One, he has a divorce because his wife leaves him. Like his wife takes a job as a uh, she's an attorney, and she takes a job, you know, in a state or two over, and is commuting, you know, and things like that. But they didn't work out, so their relationship didn't work out, and so she ended up leaving him. But in the midst of all that, he actually one episode he was beat up and he's beat up pretty badly in the bathroom because like he you know there was a victim, a GSW victim that came in and they they thought he was a banger, but he wasn't. He just happened to be around bangers and got shot, and um, and he died. And they didn't save him. They tried to save him, but they couldn't save him. They did all they could, but Dr. Green was beat up in the in the bathroom pretty bad, like life threatening, and it just really affected him. And but they subtly put clues in. You start seeing him grabbing his neck and things like that, rubbing his head and things like that. Comes to find out he has a tumor on his brain, in his brain, and so they do a surgery that prolongs his life for a while, but then eventually the tumor comes back. And his farewell episode was, you know, there was not a dry eye in my room. It's just me watching it crying with my CPAP mask. So that's terrible, terrible feeling. But anyway, yeah, it was a sad ordeal when that character passed away. But yeah, Dr. Green was one of my favorite characters in the show. Dr. Carter then steps up, becomes like the guy, and he carries the show really well. Noah Wiley does an excellent job, and he first one to leave is George Clooney, of course. But he left because of like he was a cowboy, what they call a cowboy in the medical profession, the guy that breaks the rules to kind of help patients and things like that. And so he, you know, essentially was going to get fired, but he quit. He ended up quitting and taking the job in Seattle, and that's how he left the show. But in reality, George Clooney became famous, man. But it's not that it's not a stab at him because the guy still came back often and showing up and doing things because he cared about the show. And you can tell everyone that's on the show cared about the show. Like not everybody, uh, I guess left with great, left on good terms. But the finale episode, everybody comes back. But yeah, Noah Wiley was my favorite. One of the worst characters on the show is Rocket Romano. I think his name is Robert Romano. Uh, he was, let's see, I'm trying to find him. Let's see if I can see his bald head somewhere. Also, Makai Fife pops up as Gregory Pratt, Dr. Pratt on there. Rocket Romano. Anyway, he was such a butthole. He was a butthole for sure. He was an actor that just was totally, just a horrible person. Robert Romano, Paul McCrane. You might know him from, I believe, The Green Mile or Shawshank Redemption. He's one of those Stephen King oriented films. But he is such a butthole, but you kind of feel bad for him too because you can tell he's just a lonely guy and he's a shorter guy, and so he has a complex, a Napoleon complex, I would say. But yeah, he was a very hated character. I ain't gonna lie, I hated Carrie Weaver. Carrie Weaver is a character on there that I just didn't like. She had a disability, but that's not why. She just was a cutthroat person as well. She would sell anybody out to kind of get ahead, and she rose up the ranks like every season. She essentially rose up to, at one point, running the hospital essentially. She still had a couple people to answer to, but yeah. But yeah, she was. Oh, I couldn't stand it. Especially there's one scene where Mark and her they agreed to go in and say, look, Romano cannot be chief of the ER because he is, or whatever they're gonna make him, because he is a terrible person. And so they was gonna go and tell him. And so when they went in the meeting, Mark spoke first and spoke candidly. This is why I don't think this man is right for the job. This is why they should get rid of him. Da 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 da. And they said, "Well, take it under advisement, Carrie. You have something to say." Carrie essentially was like, "Well, I think he needs a chance to be and show that he can do it." And so she gets a promotion out of that and screws Mark. I can't stand Carrie Weaver. I can't stand Carrie Weaver. I ain't gonna lie to you. All right, horror nerd. Hey, horror nerd. Joker TV. Know your role, son. And keep doing you. Good stuff. Thank you, bro. All right, so we got a cameo by horror nerd. I wish I can pop him in this episode, but he never watched ER, so he'll be looking at me the whole time like I don't know what you're talking about, man. But yeah, so yeah, man, it was just a um, great ride of a show. But yeah, so when people like it was always sad when the character died. Romano not so much, but you know there's some more characters that pass away. I don't want to give too much spoilers because I really want people to watch the show. It's streaming on Hulu. It's such a good show. But yeah, you can tell towards the end of the show that it's kind of ran its course. Um, so everybody essentially leaves, and the last crew that you got there is essentially, let's see, you have, I'm trying to pinpoint them. So Abby Lockhart, she takes the place of Juliana Margulis, Carol Hathaway. She kind of fills the void of her because she's a nurse that becomes a doctor. And then you have Luka Kovac, who pretty much embodies the George Clooney Doug's character. He's a Croatian doctor who um, suffered a horrendous tragedy was involving his family in the war in Croatia, which was a real war. And they highlighted that well in PTSD that was associated with it. They highlight PTSD well. They highlight OCD well in the show, and other things they highlight very well in the show. And they do an excellent Alzheimer's. They do a great job with that. Um, and then let's see. Later on, you get Neela Ragostra, who is she becomes a surgeon. And then at one point, Jo Ming Chin, she's in there. Ming Na Wen, who y'all know her from Agents of Shield. Also Mulan. She did the voice, I believe. Also, like she's all over the place. She's like big famous. And so yeah, she's on that show as well. Let me get back to it. Samantha Linda Cardellini. She plays Samantha Taggart or Sam Taggart. So y'all know her from Freaks and Geeks. Also, y'all might know her from The Curse of La Llorona. She's the mom in that movie. But I knew her from Freaks and Geeks. But she's a decent character in the show. She's an RN. But she's just like she's a rebel in a different sense. But you understand her character motivation as well. One character I want to highlight is Scott Grimes, Archie Morris. This guy becomes one of my favorite characters in the whole show. If I know Brandon knows him, he played in Critters, the original, and plus the second one. Brandon, if I'm wrong, I don't know if he came up in anything else. But yeah, but he plays a doctor that he's not a good doctor at first, but before the end of the show, the run of the show, he's like the best doctor, man. He's like really, he sets the pace for everybody else and took control and took charge, man. Angela Bassett pops up in there. Angela Bassett, what can you say? It's freaking Angela Bassett, right? Um, and then John Stamos. There's other people that pop up. William H Macy and CHH Pounder rather was in the first couple of. Well, William H Macy was a reoccurring actor in several seasons. CCH Pounder was in several seasons as well. Uh, Both of them were phenomenal. William H. Macy is probably one of the greatest actors alive. Um, if you don't believe me, check Fargo. Watch Fargo, won't you? Won't you watch Fargo, don't you? I'm watching the show right now. But anyway, but yeah, he's great. But I want to real quick highlight the nurses in this show. Because nurses don't get their love. They don't get a lot of respect, man. They actually frontline workers. And in the show, they showcase the nurses. And the first one I'm going to showcase is uh, Halle Adams, aka Yvette Freeman. She was in the show from the beginning to the end. Then you have Lydia Wright, who is played by Ellen Crawford. She pops up. She was an excellent. She's the first one that's in the first scene with Dr. Green. Then you have Connie Breselton, who played Connie. I can't pronounce the last name. And then Mob Dude, Deezer D, as Malik McGrath. Those are just fun. And then Chuny. I'm going to mention Chuny, Nurse Chuny. Laura Cerrone. She was in there. She's an excellent nurse. And then there's the people that worked at the desk, Jerry and then Frank. Just such a great show, man. I done went on almost 30 minutes just saying great, great, great about the show. Why I think this show is better than like other shows, and I love Resident, but I also see where Resident and Good Doctor and other shows bit pieces and chunks out of this show because this show set the pace. It set the standard for what a medical drama is, and it had humor in it. It had scariness. It had reality in it. There's a scene where Noah is working to save the life of a lady, on the table in the trauma room, and as he's working to save her life, he saves her life. It pretty much brings her back from the dead, essentially. They're waiting to transport her up to surgery. And so, or at least ICU or something. But he got her stable. This one girl comes over and is like, "Hey, I'm her sister," and then she says, "How's she doing?" And he's like, "Oh, she's gonna make it. We just had to give her so many liters of blood and da da da." Just kind of going through the spiel of what they did to save her life. And all of a sudden, this girl pulls out a gun and shoots her in the head like twice, like pop pop, and then walks off. And it's just like things that happen that I'm like, man, that's probably Chicago for real. But it just that show has so many things like that happen. Such a good show, man. I'm gonna go ahead and end it at 30 minutes if I can. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you my marks for this show. I'm gonna give this show 5 markouts out of 5. It is truly binge worthy. It is truly worthy of your time and effort to watch. Don't be scared by the outdated things. No, at one point they didn't have cell phones, and when they did have cell phones, they were bricks with big antennas sticking out of them. Yes, the clothes might be a little outdated, the hairdos may be a little outdated, but the medicine and the work is still accurate. Yeah, what is it? It's a positive. Like here's a word. All the jargon in there. Yeah, after watching it, you walk around talking about you know, these medical jargons. But yeah, now I done got on Fargo, so I can't really think about them right as we think. I keep thinking about people dying in Fargo, because that's what happens on that show. But anyway, this show is a 5-star show for me. I hope that you watch it. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Markout Movie Podcast. Brandon will be back next week, and we will have our Shark Week movie, Deep Blue Sea, next week. And until then, this is Aaron Whitlow. We thank you for marking out with us on the Markout Movie Podcast.